People always ask me when it started. Was it the nightmare, the phone call, or the moment my own mother looked into my eyes and asked who I was? They're all wrong. It started the night before, the last normal night of my life. At least, I thought it was normal. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 27 years old. I had an ordinary apartment, an ordinary job, an ordinary life. Every morning at exactly 8:17, my mother called me. Not because she had something important to say. She just wanted to make sure I was awake. She'd done it for years. I used to joke that she was more reliable than my alarm clock. I never imagined one phone call could erase my entire existence. The first nightmare came just after midnight. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I did. Everything looked normal. My bedroom, the hallway, the ceiling fan. Nothing felt different until I noticed someone standing at the foot of my bed. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. He was simply watching me. I couldn't see a face, only darkness, as if someone had cut the shape of a person out of the night itself. I tried to move. Nothing. I tried to scream. Nothing. My body refused to listen. Then the figure slowly tilted its head and spoke. Tomorrow, no one will remember you. I woke up, gasping for air. My bedroom was empty. No figure, no voice, nothing. I looked at the clock, 3:33 a.m. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because adults aren't supposed to be afraid of nightmares. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The next day, nothing unusual happened. I went to work, answered emails, grabbed coffee, drove home. Everything felt perfectly normal until I fell asleep again. The second dream was worse. The same room, the same silence, the same figure. Only this time, it wasn't standing across the room. It was beside my bed, close enough that I could hear it breathing. Slow, patient, waiting. Tomorrow, no one will remember you. I woke before it finished. My hands were shaking. For the first time in years, I locked my bedroom door. It didn't matter, because on the third night, the door was already open. The figure was inside my room, closer than ever before, close enough that I should have seen its face. But there wasn't one, only darkness. Then, for the first time, it said something different. You still have time. Time? For what? I tried to ask, but before I could speak, everything disappeared. I opened my eyes. Morning sunlight filled the room. Birds were singing outside. Everything looked completely normal. Then I looked at the clock. 8:19. That was strange. For years, my mother had called me every morning. Exactly 8:17. She never missed a day. Never. Maybe she overslept. I smiled, picked up my phone, and called her. She answered on the second ring. Morning, Mom. So long. I checked to see if the call had disconnected. Then, she spoke. Her voice was calm, polite, completely unfamiliar. I'm sorry. Who is this? Every hair on my body stood up. Before I could answer, I heard another voice, not hers, a man's voice, far away, almost whispering. He woke up. That was the moment. My life stopped making sense. For a few seconds, I just sat there, staring at my phone. Maybe I'd called the wrong number. It happens. People change phones. Numbers get recycled. There had to be a simple explanation. I looked at the contact again. It still said, Mom, the same number, The same photo, the same contact. I'd been calling for years. So I called again. 1 ring, 2, 3, she answered. Mom, it's Ethan. I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number. No, I don't. It's me, your son. Another silence, longer this time. Then she asked something that made my stomach drop. How did you get this number? I couldn't speak because she sounded genuine. Not confused, not scared, just completely certain that we'd never met. It's your phone, I whispered. You call me every morning. She sighed softly. I'm afraid you're mistaken. I'm not your mother. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. So I called once more. Straight to voicemail. Again, voicemail. Again, voicemail. It was as if she'd blocked me. That didn't make sense. Why would my own mother block me? I opened our text messages. They were empty. Every birthday wish, every holiday photo, every voice message, gone. Not deleted, gone. Like the conversation had never existed. I checked my call history. Nothing. No incoming calls from her, no missed calls, no record that she'd ever called me at 8:17. Every morning, for years, had simply vanished. No, this isn't possible. There has to be a glitch, a backup error, something. I kept saying those words. Not because I believed them, because I needed to. I grabbed my keys. If she couldn't remember me over the phone, she'd remember me, face to face. She had to. The drive felt strangely quiet. No music, no radio, just the sound of my own breathing. Then I noticed someone, a man standing across the street, perfectly still, watching me. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't waiting for a bus. He was only looking at me. I blinked. A truck passed between us. When it was gone, the man was gone too. No footsteps, no open doors, no place to hide. Just gone. I told myself I was imagining things. I started the engine and drove away. Halfway to my mother's house, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. It read, "Don't let her invite you inside." My hands tightened around the steering wheel. How could anyone know where I was going? I looked into the rearview mirror. No cars behind me, no one following me. The road was empty. I looked back at the phone. The message had disappeared. Not deleted, not unsent. It simply wasn't there anymore. That was the moment I realized the nightmare hadn't ended. It had followed me into the real world. 10 minutes later, I turned onto my mother's street. Everything looked normal. The white mailbox, the flower garden, the old maple tree, exactly the way I'd remembered. Then, I looked at the living room window. For less than a second, I saw someone standing behind the curtain, watching me. Tall, completely still. So blinked, the curtain moved, and whoever had been there was gone. I got out of the car and walked toward the front door. I stood in front of the house for what felt like forever. Maybe I shouldn't knock. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear the truth, but I had to know. I walked to the front door and knocked. Once, twice. Footsteps. Slow, steady, coming closer. The door opened. There she was, my mother. The same gray sweater, the same silver necklace, the same gentle eyes I'd known my entire life. For one brief moment, I smiled. Everything was going to be okay. Then she looked at me. Not through me, at me. Exactly the way you'd look at someone you'd never met before. "Can I help you?" I laughed, a nervous laugh. "Very funny, Mom. It's me, Ethan." Nothing. Not a smile, not a blink, not even the slightest hint that she recognized my voice. Instead, her expression changed. She looked concerned. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" My heart just stopped. "No. Mom, please, look at me. It's Ethan, your son." She slowly shook her head. "I'm afraid you're mistaken. I don't have a son." Those words hurt more than I can describe. Not because she meant to hurt me, because she believed them. Every single word. I looked past her shoulder, the hallway, the staircase, the old grandfather clock. Everything was exactly the same. This wasn't the wrong house. This was home. Or at least, it used to be. Without thinking, I stepped inside. She immediately backed away. "Sir, you can't come in here. I'm calling the police." But I barely heard her. Something had caught my attention. The photographs, dozens of them, covering the hallway wall. Christmas, birthdays, family vacations, every memory of my childhood. I walked toward the first frame. It was our trip to Florida. I remembered that day perfectly. Dad was wearing the ridiculous straw hat. Mom couldn't stop laughing, and I was standing between them. I looked closer. Dad was there. Mom was there. But where I should have been, there was nothing. Just empty space. No. I grabbed another photograph. Christmas morning, the presents, the tree, my parents, an empty space beside the fireplace. Another picture, my 10th birthday, the cake, the balloons, my parents smiling, but beside the birthday cake, nothing. No child, no shadow, nothing. I checked another, and another, and another. Every photograph had forgotten me. Behind me, my mother's voice shook. "Please, I'm begging you, leave my house. You are frightening me." I slowly turned around. There were tears in my eyes. I searched her face for anything. One memory, one hesitation, one sign that somewhere inside, she still knew me. There was nothing. She wasn't pretending. She wasn't lying. She truly believed she had never seen me before. Then, something caught my eye. One last photograph, hanging alone at the end of the hallway. It was taken just weeks before my father died. Again, I wasn't there. But this time, something else was. Standing behind my parents in the hallway, a tall, black figure. No face, no eyes, just darkness. I froze. I blinked. The figure was gone. The photograph looked normal again. I don't know if the photograph changed or if it wanted me to know it was there. Because at that moment, I realized something. Whatever had been standing beside my bed for 3 nights had reached my mother's house before I did. And somehow, it had been waiting for me. I couldn't breathe. Not because I was running, because nothing made sense anymore. My own mother had just looked me in the eyes and told me she'd never had a son. I should have left Any normal person would have, but I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I was looking for proof. Proof that I had lived here. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Without saying another word, I ran upstairs. Behind me, I heard my mother shouting, "Stop! Please! The police are on their way!" Her voice echoed through the house, but it sounded far away, almost like I was hearing it underwater. I reached the last door on the left, my bedroom, or the room I remembered as mine. My hand rested on the doorknob. For just a second, I was afraid to open it, because part of me already knew what I was going to find. I opened the door. The room looked familiar. Blue walls, the same window, the same wooden desk, the same ceiling fan. Everything was exactly where I remembered. For one brief moment, I smiled. Maybe I wasn't crazy after all. Then I looked closer. The bookshelf was empty. Every novel I'd ever collected, gone. Every comic book, gone. The little astronaut figure my father gave me when I was 8, gone. I opened the closet. Nothing. No jackets, no shoes, no boxes, not even a single hanger. It didn't look cleaned out. It looked unused, as if no one had ever lived there. I pulled open every drawer. Nothing. I looked beneath the bed. Nothing. The old guitar my father bought me, gone. The baseball glove we used every summer, gone. Every birthday card, every school notebook, every memory, gone. It wasn't just my belongings. It was my entire childhood, erased, as if someone had carefully removed every piece of evidence that I'd ever existed. Then, something caught my attention. On top of the desk, there was dust, a thin layer, everywhere, except one small rectangle. Something had been sitting there recently, about the size of a picture frame, but now it was missing. Someone had taken it. I walked toward the window. Outside, my car was still parked in the driveway. My mother was talking to the police. Then, across the street, I saw him again. The man, standing perfectly still, watching the house, watching me. I blinked. A passing car blocked my view. When it passed, he was gone. Again. No footsteps, no doors closing, nothing. Just gone. That's when I remembered the fireproof safe. Every important document was inside it. Birth certificates, medical records, insurance papers. If my birth certificate was still there, then none of this mattered. I ran downstairs. The police were distracted. I slipped past them and opened the closet beneath the stairs. The safe was exactly where I remembered. My fingers shook as I entered the code, my father's birthday. Click! The door opened. Inside, everything was perfectly organized. Property records, insurance papers, marriage certificate, my father's death certificate. Everything was there, except mine. I searched every folder, again and again and again. Nothing. No birth certificate, no school records, no medical files, no report cards. Nothing with the name Ethan Carter. I slowly leaned back. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then, something slipped from behind the folders. A small, yellow envelope. I frowned. I'd never seen it before. Across the front, someone had written, in black ink, "If you're reading this, they have already started rewriting your life." I slowly opened the envelope. Inside, there was only one photograph. My father, my mother, and me. I almost cried. Finally, proof that I had existed. Then I turned the photograph over. 3 words, written by hand. Don't trust mirrors. I stared at those words for what felt like forever. Then, my phone vibrated. Unknown number, one new message. They know you found the photograph. I slipped the photograph into my jacket. For the first time that day, I had something that proved I wasn't crazy. A single photograph. The only one where I still existed. Then I heard footsteps. The police. One officer walked toward me, calm, professional. "Sir, please step away from the safe." I slowly closed the door, raised my hands. I didn't even try to explain. How could I? How do you tell someone that reality is deleting you? The younger officer looked at me. "Can I see some identification?" I reached into my wallet and handed him my driver's license. He looked down. His expression changed immediately. He frowned. "This isn't funny." I blinked. "What?" He turned the license toward me. I felt the blood drain from my face. My picture was gone. My name, gone. My date of birth, gone. Every piece of information had vanished. It was nothing more than a blank piece of plastic. The officer looked at me. "Where did you get this?" I couldn't answer, because less than 2 hours ago, it had been completely normal. They brought me to the police station, not under arrest, just for questioning. The drive was silent. I watched people walking down the sidewalks, talking, laughing, living completely ordinary lives. None of them had any idea that I was disappearing. Inside the station, they sat me across from an older detective. Gray hair, calm voice, kind eyes. He introduced himself. Then he smiled. "Let's figure this out." For the first time all day, I felt a tiny bit of hope. He typed my name. Nothing. He searched my birthday. Nothing. Driver's license. Nothing. Passport. Nothing. Employment records. Nothing. Medical history. Nothing. School records. Nothing. It was as if I'd never been born. The detective leaned back. He looked genuinely confused. "I've worked homicide, missing persons, identity fraud for almost 30 years. I've never seen anything like this." Then he quietly asked, "Mr. Carter, have you ever experienced hallucinations?" I wanted to be angry. Instead, I understood. If I were him, I'd ask the same question, because none of this should have been possible. Then, every light in the station flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Every computer screen went black. Complete silence. 5 seconds later, everything came back on. The detective frowned. He touched the keyboard. His face turned pale. My search history. It's gone. He searched again. Nothing. Not even a record that he'd searched my name. The computer behaved as though I'd never sat in that room. Reality was correcting itself. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. "Stop trying to prove you exist." Another message arrived. "They aren't deleting your records. They're replacing them." My breathing becomes uneven. I typed back, "Who are you?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Again, 3 dots. Finally, a reply. The last person who remembered. Before I could type another word, one final message appeared. "Whatever you do, don't look into a mirror after midnight." I slowly lifted my eyes. Across the interview room hung a large observation mirror. I remembered the words written behind the photograph. "Don't trust mirrors." The room suddenly felt colder, much colder. I checked the clock on the wall. 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes until midnight. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of being forgotten. I was afraid of what might remember me. Every word feels heavier than the last. Midnight. The second hand reached 12. Nothing happened. No whisper, no shadow, no monster crawling out of the mirror. For a moment, I almost laughed. Maybe this was all fear, nothing more. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. Leave. Now. My breathing becomes quicker. Without thinking, I stood up. The detective looked at me. "Mr. Carter? Where are you going?" I didn't answer. I walked out of the interview room, then faster, until I was almost running. Nobody stopped me. It was as if no one even noticed I was leaving. Outside, the streets were empty. The city felt wrong. Too quiet. No traffic, no voices, only the sound of my footsteps. I unlocked my apartment door. Everything inside looked normal, at first. Then I noticed the furniture. The couch had moved. The dining table was facing the opposite direction. Books I'd left on the shelf were stacked neatly on the floor. Nothing was broken. Nothing was stolen. Someone had simply rearranged my entire apartment. I whispered, "No, I live alone." Someone had been here. My phone vibrated again. Unknown number. "You're running out of time." I typed as fast as I could. "Who are you?" This time, they answered immediately. The last person they couldn't erase. Before I could reply, the screen went black. It had been over 70% just moments earlier. Then I heard it. A floorboard creaking upstairs. Once, then again. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Someone was walking inside my apartment. I reached for the kitchen knife. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. Every instinct told me to run. But another voice, inside my head, needed to know, needed to see. I followed the sound. One step, then another. Every floorboard groaned beneath my feet. The hallway was empty. The bedroom, empty. The living room, empty. Only one door remained, the bathroom. It was slightly open. A thin strip of light spilled across the floor. I slowly pushed the door open. No one. Just the mirror. I remembered the warning. Don't trust mirrors. I should have walked away. I didn't. I looked up. At first, everything was normal. My reflection looked exactly like me. Same clothes, same exhausted face, same terrified eyes. Then it smiled. I hadn't. The reflection was smiling, while my own face stood frozen in fear. No. It slowly raised one hand and waved. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then, without making a sound, it mouthed 3 words. "Thank you, Ethan." The bathroom light exploded. Darkness swallowed the room. My phone, which should have been dead, suddenly lit up. One final message. Unknown number. "It has your face now." Another message appeared. "When you fall asleep, it won't be dreaming anymore." Then, my screen changed by itself. A photograph appeared. It was me, standing outside my apartment building, looking directly at the camera. The timestamp was tomorrow morning. I hadn't taken that picture. It hadn't happened yet. Someone already knew where I was going to be. If you're listening to this, and one day someone you love looks at you like they've never seen you before, don't argue. Don't beg them to remember. And whatever you do, if your reflection smiles before you do, run. Run and never look back.